On the 19th of September 2016, you said that trying to overturn the Brexit referendum with another referendum would be utterly counterproductive and was seriously disrespectful.
Yes, I did, and that was the right thing to say at the time. There was no justification for just rerunning the referendum because we'd lost it. But we're now 3 years on. We've got no clarity about what Brexit actually means. I think a lot of people in the meantime have rethought their positions. There are different forms of Brexit that have been offered. It seems perfectly reasonable now, in the light of what we know, and we didn't know at the time, to go back to the public and say, do you want this Brexit or some other version?
It's still seriously disrespectful, isn't it?
No,
to those people who voted and we had a result.
Not at all. No, I do respect the fact that some people have firm views about it, but it's a very different position from 3 years ago. And I think, you know,
you were talking about your then party leader's position, which was exactly the same as yours now, which was to overturn Brexit by holding another referendum. That's exactly what you want to do now, isn't it?
Well, we do, but the context is totally different from 3 years ago. And we're not talking about rerunning the referendum. There may be quite different questions this time, and we certainly know an awful lot more about what Brexit entails than we did then.
Well, what question would you ask then?
Well, I would be open to the idea of saying, you know, the choice between Remain and the government's deal modified by the Labour Party or whatever. But if there is a large groundswell of opinion which says, quote, no deal, whatever that may mean, then that is an option which you'd have to offer in a democratic voting.
The Brexit Party is at 34% in the latest poll. Arguing for a no deal. You've got to offer no deal.
Of course. No, I think that's totally legitimate. And
so the question would be what then? A three-way vote?
There would be three options, and you can formulate them as two questions. There's a lot of work being done into how this can be done in a balanced and sensible way. But Parliament would have to resolve what the questions are with the advice of the Electoral Commission. But I don't have any problems with opening up the options to reflect where we now are politically.
But isn't it clear, given the success of Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party, that a huge number of people agree with you 3 years ago rather than you now, that it is seriously disrespectful to ask them again?
Well, a huge number of people, you know, it is probably a third of the population, do feel strongly about leaving. There are probably an equal number, probably slightly more on the other side, who feel very strongly about remaining, and some people in the middle who are trying to work around the government's failed position. So we've got to resolve that logjam somehow, and going back to the public and having a referendum, however unpalatable, it's not an easy option, and it's not something some of us savour, but it is the only way out of the mess that we're currently in.
Well, the only way that's going to happen is if you team up with Labour, isn't it? Because Theresa May, or no Conservative who succeeds her, is going to offer a second referendum. So the only way to get a second referendum is for you and Labour to team up.
Well, there are quite a lot of Conservatives as well, and other smaller parties, and we all agree that we should support a deal, the government's deal or modified deal, subject to a confirmatory referendum.
How many Conservative MPs do you know who want
I don't
a confirmatory referendum?
I don't know.
It's a tiny number, isn't it, in truth?
Well, I suspect that the severity of the crisis is increasing the number as time goes on.
But what I mean is, that means you trying to put Jeremy Corbyn into power, doesn't it?
No, it's a totally separate question. I mean,
well, how are you going to get it otherwise? I mean, just through a vote in Parliament?
Yes, well, that is how it's got to happen. And so I've had meetings with the Prime Minister and with Conservative ministers, and I say to them, and I think other MPs do too, that we're happy to support your proposal, your deal, subject to a confirmatory referendum, and that's what Parliament will ultimately have to face.
But you are clearly looking at something of a resurgence. You're at about 15% in the latest poll. If the government falls and there's another general election, we could be back into a situation where you face a choice, and the choice will be, do I make Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister? Well, is that the one you would pick?
No, it isn't. And I think you're making a lot of jumps. I mean, we're a long way from having a vote that would defeat the government. I suspect that the Conservatives would close ranks if that happened. But if hypothetically there were a general election, I mean, I would still be leading as if it was before the summer, I've made it very clear we go into that. We're not committing ourselves to a coalition on either side, but we'd work constructively with whatever party
you would support
emerged
a
as the
minority
largest.
government, is what I mean. You'd support a minority Labour government.
We could do it issue by issue. We could do it on the same basis that the Ulster Unionists are now supporting government. But we're in
But this is a key
different
question for a lot of people, that whether Jeremy Corbyn is going to end up being Prime Minister with Liberal Democrat votes.
We're not going into coalition with Jeremy Corbyn. We're very, very clear.
No, but you would support a minority administration.
Well, it might be a Conservative minority or a Labour minority, or it could be in the very volatile environment that my party could break through. I mean, you know, we just don't know in the current circumstances.
I mean, it's interesting you just said you would be fighting the next general election. So this isn't your last election?
Well, if a general election's called in the next few weeks, then I would be. But if it's later, almost certainly not. So
when are you thinking of handing over to your successor?
I've indicated that by the summer there will be a change, and it's for the party to work out the detailed timetable.